Let's examine something unexpected. A gambler is up $300. They start betting bigger. Same gambler, different night. Now down $300. They start betting bigger again. Opposite situations, yet the same escalation. People assume gambling spirals because someone is reckless, desperate, or terrible with math. Sometimes, sure. But most of the time, the shift is subtler than that. It's psychological gravity. The brain moves the target but doesn't announce it. There are two well-documented effects that show up again and again in research on decision-making and gambling behavior. The house money effect and the break-even effect. And once you understand those, a lot of confusing behavior suddenly makes sense. If at any point this feels uncomfortably familiar, just know that I do offer free consultations. The link's below. No pressure, just an option. If we haven't met, I'm Phil Shea. I'm an addictions counselor, and I work primarily with men who are struggling with gambling and video game addiction. Let's start with winning. You're up $200 early in the session. You feel sharp. You feel ahead. Your bets creep upward. Why? Because your brain has categorized that 200 differently than your paycheck. Researchers call this mental accounting. Your brain keeps separate emotional ledgers. Money earned through work feels anchored to effort. Money won in 5 minutes feels lighter, looser. Like it's not fully yours yet. It's not actualized. Like something extra or a bonus. So risk tolerance shifts. If you lose it, you're back to even. That internal narrative is huge. The reference point becomes the starting balance of the session. Anything above feels like a cushion, inviting more risk tolerance. Research by Thaler and Johnson demonstrated this clearly. Prior gains increase willingness to take subsequent risks. People gamble more aggressively with recent winnings than with their own baseline funds. The casino doesn't distinguish between those dollars though, but your brain absolutely does. So now let's flip the situation. You're down $400. The goal quietly changes. You're no longer playing to win money, you're playing to erase a loss. The target becomes zero. The break-even effect describes this pull. After losses, people become unusually attracted to opportunities that could restore them to their prior reference point. The brain treats that potential restoration as relief rather than profit, which is a powerful motive to get back. Being down feels wrong, incomplete, like something needs correcting. Your attention narrows, arousal rises, and urgency enters the chat. You start calculating bets based on one question. Can this get me back to neutral? Chasing losses is listed in diagnostic frameworks for gambling disorders for a reason. Loss shifts the reference point. Urgency increases risk, leading to increased volatility and then increased losses, and that loss deepens urgency, completing the vicious cycle. And here's the part people rarely say out loud. Some gamblers report feeling more alive when they're down, more focused, more intense, more locked in. You'd think losing would flatten excitement, and sometimes it does, but often it sharpens it. When you're down, your nervous system shifts into threat mode, cortisol rises, attention tightens. The idea of one decisive win, restoring balance, carries emotional weight. That imagined restoration generates a spike. The spike feels like hope, or momentum, or purpose. It's similar to the feeling of the final round of a tournament where you're competing for gold. You feel plugged in, on fire, in a flow state. Then, each bet becomes a vehicle for emotional regulation, which is why I often point out how gambling is more about regulating internal states than it is about entertainment or money. Diagnostic guidance also highlights gambling in response to negative emotional moods. Diagnostic guidance also highlights gambling in response to negative mood states. When people gamble while distressed, feeling anxious, bored, or depressed, the behavior functions as short-term relief, reinforcing repetition. If relief becomes the driver, escalation becomes more likely. There's also a social layer worth mentioning. Observers sometimes feel a strange thrill watching someone else spiral. Sports bettors sweating late-game losses, poker players on tilt. That social emotion, often described as similar to schadenfreude, adds another emotional amplifier. Competition, status, and justice motives. The emotional field around gambling is rarely neutral. To recap, you have two forces pulling from opposite directions. When you're up, money feels lighter. Risk tolerance increases. When you're down, urgency increases. Risk tolerance also increases with that. Winning stretches you forward, losing pulls you harder. Either way, bet size creeps upward. Once you see that pattern, it's hard to unsee it. And the goal of this channel is actually to make gambling less fun. making it easier and more practical to step back from the brink. After all, the system exploits shifting reference points. It doesn't need you irrational all the time, it only needs your brain to move the goalposts subtly. You start the night wanting to have fun, but you end the night fighting to get back to even. 0 becomes sacred, but 0 is arbitrary. It's just a mental marker you set when you walked in. The casino doesn't care about your marker. It only tracks the net gain or losses over time. So, what can you actually do with this information? First, preset stop losses and stop win limits before emotion enters the room, meaning the amount you'll lose before you stop or the amount you'll win before you stop, and stopping when that happens. Decide the numbers when your nervous system is calm. Write them down. Treat them as binding. Second, outlaw recovery bets. The moment you hear or think the phrase, just to get back, that's your cue to step away. Recovery thinking signals that the reference point has shifted. Third, treat urgency as a warning light. The stronger the internal pressure to act, the more likely your decision making is being hijacked by relief seeking. None of this is about being weak or strong. It's about recognizing that your brain categorizes money and loss dynamically. It adapts to context in ways that feel logical in the moment. We are all prone to these behaviors. It's just a natural bias built into our brains. If you've noticed your bets expanding when you're comfortably up, that's house money brain at work. If you've noticed your bets escalate when you're down and trying to recover, that's break-even brain tightening its grip. Take note of these well-documented patterns. They are common, predictable, and interruptible, which is key. Once you can label the shift, you can create a few seconds of distance. Sometimes a few seconds is enough to change the behavior. If gambling has started to feel less like entertainment and more like emotional regulation, that's usually the inflection point where outside support becomes useful. Again, I work with this pattern directly. We build structures that prevent the goalposts from moving. We design friction in advance. We make the invisible shifts visible. If you're ready for structured help, click the free strategy call link below. If you're not ready, simply start watching for the moment when your target changes from profit to relief. That moment decides a lot. Once again, I'm Phil Shea, Addictions Counselor. Simply equipping yourself with this information is a huge step forward, so I'd like to congratulate you for getting this far. And as always, have a great day.